Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofrumento, and I'll tell you what, as someone who interviews entrepreneurs for a living, I have found that there are so many insights to be gleaned and learned from people who have worked in luxury spaces. There's something that the world of luxury has absolutely figured out that all of us can borrow for our own businesses, whether it comes to the way that we interact with clients, whether it comes to the way we onboard our clients, whether it comes to the way that we just think about the experience that we want to give. And that's why I'm so excited for all of us to learn from today's guest and fellow entrepreneur. Let me introduce you to her. Her name is Justine Lafond. Justine is a military spouse, a mother, and a 2-time business owner of Étoile Agency, which is a boutique national media agency, and Jaunty J Interiors, which is a full-service luxury interior design firm. With almost 20 years of experience in niche and luxury industries, sales and marketing, as well as her mastery of relationship-based networking, she decided to put that all together and, along with her co-founder, launch her agency. So we're going to dig into a lot of good stuff in today's conversation. I'm excited about this one. Let's dive straight into my interview with Justine Lafond. All right, Justine, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Heck yes, you heard right there in the teaser at the top of today's episode. I think we're all going to learn a lot from you today, so I'm going to put the spotlight on you, kick things off, take us beyond the bio. Who's Justine? How'd you start doing all these cool things?
Well, I went to the University of North Texas, and just north of Dallas, Texas, and that is where I got my degree. And then I knew I wanted to be an interior designer or something in that world from like the age of 6. My parents gave me free rein with my room, which was their first mistake, and that just took over. So my degree initially was in interior design, and it was very heavy on CAD and graphics and all that kind of stuff. And so I actually ended up doing 2 years of undergrad design and then switching to a business major. And so I kind of got a collaborative degree, which I think actually really helped me moving forward because I was able to take all of the knowledge that I got in school with design, implement it right away, but then kind of have the business side of things too. And that just spun out of control into a really cool career that I would say my first big girl job was with Luxe Interiors and Design magazine. I was with them for about 4 to 5 years in my mid-20s, and then continued to, do design type things. I worked for a luxury stone and tile company that was integrating technology into the way that you purchase slabs. And it was pretty revolutionary when it kind of first got launched at the time. And then got married, moved to Florida, and saw a huge gap in the market in the Florida Panhandle for good interior design. They're about at least a decade behind in aesthetics and industry. And yet they had a ton of transients at the time of people coming from bigger cities wanting their homes executed in a way that they'd been used to and that they'd seen. And so I just lucked out at the time and just decided to start my business and go from there.
Yeah, I really love that overview, especially because, Justine, when I think about it, and there's only been a few times in more than 1,300 episodes here that we've specifically had people who have spent so much time in the world of luxury services, luxury in all the ways, luxury industries as well. And Justine, when I think about that, you talk about working for a luxury stone company, for example. It's not just your average stone company. There's luxury into that. Right. What does that mean in your world? Because I feel like as consumers, we feel the difference, but I'm not sure we can articulate what that difference really is.
Yeah, I think people that work in the luxury space always joke, like, what does luxury even mean? Everybody says luxury this, I think honestly for different people, it means different things. For me, luxury is eating dinner by candlelight with my family and having a home cooked meal. For some people, luxury is a very sterile environment that's super clean. That's maybe a penthouse in the city. I think luxury is how something makes you feel. but to a degree, it's also kind of perceived value of things, right? If you think Louis Vuitton or you think Ralph Lauren, there's an immediate something that comes to mind that gives you a sense of feeling or of elegance or, something like that. Cost and investment, and it just is it's its own unique little niche market, and it's crazy to work in and see what people will spend on things, and the quality that goes into things and the craftsmanship, and it's just incredible across the board. And that's everything from fashion and textiles all the way up to home construction and design and building.
Yeah, it's a really cool world, and I love the fact that even inside of that world, you all joke of like, how exactly do we define this? But obviously, you've picked up so many of those principles, of those practices, of those strategies, of the emotions that come with your luxury background, and you've applied it, I'm sure, in so many different ways to your businesses. So introduce listeners who aren't familiar yet with Étoile Agency. What does that look like? Obviously, what is that agency, and how have you structured it? Because I love that boutique look and feel to it as well. Just as someone from the outside looking in, I feel like you take care of me when I'm your client. Like it is that intimate relationship. I'm not just a number inside of there. And then how have you baked that luxury experience into the way you operate?
So as I started my initial business, Jaunty J Interiors, we came up with a really good roadmap. I invested in coaching and I invested in framework for my business and all these different things that kind of helped the intake process and the client experience, I think, be really seamless and feel really luxury, feel really special. Like you said, people want to feel like you are focusing on them as a client, right? They don't want to just be one out of thousands. And so given that I worked with a ton of luxury businesses, textile companies, rug companies, stone and tile, I got to see how they all structured themselves and what unique things they did, and had the opportunity to partner with somebody who was doing just incredible digital media work. And I said, you know what, there's such a gap in the market, especially for contractors, interior designers, architects, developers. There's such a gap there for them having websites, having robust digital media presence, buys, marketing plans. I just thought, what better person than somebody that already has started a luxury design company to offer digital services and explain the meaning and the importance behind the marketing of trust and luxury and niche specific things, whatever their specific business is.
Yeah, and along those lines, what I really like is that a lot of people talk about marketing. A lot of people talk about digital services. A lot of people have heard of media agencies. But Justine, when I look at your company, I love your messaging because so much of it is not about what you do, but obviously the results that come with it. And when I look at the results that you talk about so much, it's building authentic, long-lasting connections that drive growth. Connections is such a common word in your messaging. Talk to us about that emphasis, because in a world where everyone is just sidetracked by social media and everyone wants impressions and everybody wants video views and downloads, it's so clear to me that you've got your eyes on that connection piece. Talk to us about that.
So again, that was kind of born of my initial business and just my almost 15 years prior in the design world in Dallas. And I being a military spouse, you're like, oh gosh, I have to reinvent myself or my career in these different places as we move, or when you become a mom and, you've got to juggle all these things. And I never was worried because my connections are so strong that I knew that I had access to either a job if I needed it remotely, or, in my case for the design world, reaching back out to people in Dallas that had capabilities to do things I needed in Florida that I couldn't find anybody for in the Panhandle for execution purposes. And so, my network there and with other people over the years was so vast. I'm a good people person. I enjoy talking to new people and not uncomfortable in a room full of strangers. And so I thought, one piece that I feel like is very transactional in the digital world is just, the way that people do buying and interacting. People are trying to automate as much as they can. They're trying to take as much off of their mental load and plate as they possibly can. And I get it. And that's possible, especially now with AI, and the more that comes out with capabilities that they have. But the big piece I think that's missing, especially in the luxury space, is the trust that you have to have not only with your clients, but with the end user before they're going to commit to spending X amount of dollars to buy anything or to invest in anything. And so I saw this really unique spot for me to use that to be able to connect different clients and go beyond what their digital strategy and their digital buy is going to be. So, for example, let's say I'm working with a sports management agency that places, athletes and professional athletes and college athletes in a position where they're able to be represented, they're able to garner NIL money, contracts, brand partnerships. The knowledge that I have, not only in the marketing space, but the connections that I have with other people. Let's say they need a lawyer. Let's say they need, someone to do copywriting. I have all of these connections because of the spaces that I've worked in, that I'm able to not only say, hey, here's your marketing plan and your digital strategy, but also you need XYZ. Let me help you fill these gaps. So that you don't have to go out on your own. So I just think it makes me more valuable as a boutique agency to be able to supply my clients with much more than a digital buy and signing on the dotted line for a contract.
Yeah, and when it comes to making you more valuable, Justine, as someone who interviews entrepreneurs for a living, I'm going to very much call this out about you because it stands out, and I so appreciate this, is how often when you and I are talking about any topic, you weave in your past experiences, but you're also weaving in insights and lessons and strategies you've picked up from both of your businesses. And I'll confess this on the air that oftentimes in entrepreneurial circles, a lot of people say, you can only focus on one thing. But Justine, just like yourself, I have the podcast, I have other businesses, and I would very much argue until the day I die, that makes me a way more valuable asset in anybody's team. It makes me way more valuable in the way that I look at business because I do get these different vantage points. I do deal with different people and in all of these experiences. Talk to us about that 2 times business approach, because I think there's so much value in there, and I feel like people are often discouraged from it, but you're such a shining example at how it makes all sides of the coin so much better.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I would like to think I bring hopefully some knowledge from the first business's failures and successes. The thing that I think that I take the most with me is my businesses are parallel, even though they're very different. They're very parallel because it's the same. We're really kind of focused on the same eyes, the end user and the end client. So I think for starting that second business, it made natural sense for me to take some of the things that I've done in Jaunty J Interiors and make sure that they were done well for Étoile Agency. And then it also gives me a really nice, kind of leg up in room to speak to my potential clients that are looking at doing digital buys. Most of the time, these guys are startups or in their kind of early baby growth phase. And so they might not understand the importance of a really strong brand message, of maybe how to pitch luxury, if you will, to the end user, to their clients. And so, for example, this sports agency that I was talking about, they are a new luxury sports management agency focused on NIL athletes and brand partnerships. And they were started mostly by finance guys. And their goal is to take these kids essentially out of high school that are getting hundreds of thousands of dollar NIL deals and brand partnership deals, and help them not blow that money and to make the best investments over the long term, so that eventually if they go pro, or even if they don't, they are able to invest and use that money strategically moving forward to help set them up for life. And they admittedly were like, we don't know jack about website design, about design in general, about user experience, strategy, infrastructure, any of the things that make a business solid and that help the perceived value, which translates to perceived trust with the end user. And so they, contacted me to say, hey, can you help us come up with some type of, parallel engine that that blends the marketing piece and the, website and the user experience with a digital buy that says the same thing. And it's a very specific kind of strategy that you have to use. So I think it's, we're very baby here. I think it's going to be successful. I think it has a lot of room for growth and to resonate with people. And just from the feedback we've gotten, it's pretty unique so far. Layer in that networking piece and helping people beyond just the dollars and cents of a contract. And I think it will be very valuable moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. And especially because you really think so intentionally about certain topics. And I want to go deeper into the topic of perceived value, because it's kind of one of those things that we toss out there. And us as business owners, we think about perceived value, especially when we're sitting down to say, how the heck am I supposed to price this thing? How am I supposed to convey the messaging around this thing? And so perceived value, it's such an interesting topic, because you and I, let's say we've never seen a Ferrari in our lives. We can look at a Ferrari and there's something about it that feels luxurious. There's something about it that feels high end. And I don't know if it's the logo. I don't know if it's the shape of it. I don't know if it's us observing other people react to that Ferrari, but it's probably obviously a combination of all of these things. But when you think about perceived value in the context of businesses rather than just sports cars, where does your mind go? Because I think that's something that we can all take inside of our businesses.
Oh gosh, I'm such like a tactile person, so I love to like touch and see things. So perceived value for me, when I'm completely hands off, for me is just basically clarity across the board in your messaging, in your even your typeface. Does your website work in a way that it needs to, so that it conveys the pillars of your business or who you are or what you do very clearly? Can you function on the page easily and find out all the information you need to without having to dig? Does it look like it was built in this century? Or is it, old? Does it look like HTML that was thrown in there? That across the board for all of your other social media. And I'm not someone that thinks you need to be everywhere, but for social media, you need to be in the places where your clients are, and that messaging needs to stay consistent. Colors and, video images, like the pixels need to be right for web. You need to have mobile optimization so that if people are going and looking on a small screen, they're seeing the same thing generally, and there's not a bunch of formatting errors. Anything that just feels like it is buttoned up is going to put your best foot forward. And that's the first thing that people are looking at. I'm a millennial, and so I think it started with us, really. If you didn't have a website, back in when I was working for Lux Magazine, maybe 2012 or 15, we either thought that you had gone out of business, or that you sucked and you didn't want to put your work out there. And I think that prevalence is going to continue to increase. And so really it's your best foot forward to the world first, is what I think like a digital footprint and a digital strategy and a website shows your clients. That is perceived value. And that's the very first step to earning somebody's trust, is that at least you look like you have your stuff together.
Yeah, so well said. And just, I want to go deeper, because I know that this is a thread that has followed you all throughout your professional career in life, and that is relationships. When it comes to making that first impression, that's great. Initiating conversation, cool. But maintaining that relationship for all of us in our businesses, whether it's with our clients, with our prospects, with our team members, with partnerships. I mean, so many of these things are near and dear to your heart. What does that look like to maintain and manage and keep the momentum in these relationships? Because we're all juggling so many different things in our businesses. I'd love for you to take us behind the Rolodex of Justine. How do you manage all of these people that you know and all the people that you're collaborating with along the way?
Well, I'm pretty active on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, not quite as much. I'm starting to be now more with the agency than I was with Jaunty J, but I'm friends on social media on Facebook and Instagram with a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years and become friends with. And I'm always, commenting on their posts and just seeing updates for their lives and just checking in that way, like very personally. But I worked with a coach who told told me for client reach out and business relationship building that I need to quite literally schedule, especially for how my brain works, a little ADD, schedule times, quarterly or every 6 months to reach out to either potential clients or past clients and just touch base with them. And I keep little mental notes of my clients or potential clients, things that they were struggling specifically with, maybe why they reached out to us for a proposal, or where their kids go to college, or if they have a dog. I send initial gifts anytime I sign a contract with somebody. I try to make them very specific. I send them, I think about what we're going to send, but to our design clients, we typically send this really cute little design book that doubles as a coffee table book for them to flip through with some type of personalized gift with it. I just like to be intentional with stuff like that. I send thank you cards. I love snail mail. Anything that you can touch base to let people know, I'm paying attention to you. I see you. And this business relationship is an investment also for me. And so I just try to be really diligent about those types of things.
Yeah, I love it. Especially listeners, I'm going to call this out for all of us. Justine already talked about being tactile, having something physically, tangibly in all of our hands. Justine, I would imagine that strategy, it works even better here in 2026 because that's a lost art, which it's crazy how many people are losing that. And we're all just sending emails. Even worse, I feel like Slack is taking that next level where a lot of us are connected with our clients in Slack. And so it just becomes way more informal, way less personal, and way less tactile. So really cool to hear about the way that you're operating there. I've got to ask you about this. I try not to inject this into every conversation, but I feel like it's just the elephant in the room now, and that is AI. You come from quite a technical background. I think people forget how much goes into interior design as far as technology goes and CAD and all these visual displays. Talk to us about your use of AI internally, but also how it's shaping your landscape, because I would feel like it would touch every aspect of what it is that you do with clients.
It does. And, I think like any other modern invention, it's incredible, but then also can be overused. And I think at some point it will become a detriment somewhere. I just don't think that, modern civilization is very good at moderation. And so personally for me, that's kind of how I feel like AI will eventually fall. It's incredible right now. It is a time saver in certain spaces. We use it to sometimes perfect like our social media captions. And I have somebody that handles my social media that knows my voice, but we'll come up with something and she'll say, hey, here's what chat spit out. Do you like this? Do you want to tweak it? We will do our own renderings. We use Chief Architect in-house for the design company, but you can enhance the renderings that you do with AI. So maybe we want a specific time of day for lighting and we want it to be a little more moody or whatever. So we can enhance them using that. It's really great, I think, for those things when it's utilized in a way that is going to help you save time, save money, save effort. But it's not great when it replaces people. And I think that is probably where the overcorrection will come in eventually, because it always does. And I think that's why there's room in the market and any luxury market for people to have a one-on-one connection and keep that, face-to-face element there and important, top of mind, because there are going to be so many businesses that you can't talk to a person. You can't get somebody on the phone. You can't get face-to-face with. And I don't care who you are, human connection is paramount. Personally, professionally, all of that. So that's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that these are really important considerations for all of us, is that you can't replace the human. You certainly can't replace empathy when it comes to AI usage. AI can take a lot of the things so that we can inject more of the human into things. But I think it's really important for us to be intentional about the way we're working that into our workflows, our deliverables, our communications, and then even just internally as a thought partner. So really cool insights there. Justine, it makes me want to ask you, not that I think AI is a trend, so I'm not directly linking these two, but when it does come to the luxury space, I find that there's so many trends that come and go along the years. And of course, as fellow millennials, we've seen a lot of trends come full circle and they come back into it. Whether we're talking interior design, whether we're talking digital marketing and services there, I just feel like all of these industries have their trends that come and go. I remember once upon a time when Gary Vee was preaching, you need to be on Snapchat. Snapchat is everything in our businesses. Yeah. Of course, it was merely just a trend. We don't have to be on Snapchat. But Justine, how do you make sense of what's trendy, what's timeless, what we should be paying attention to? What's that executive filter look like in your businesses?
Oh gosh, gut instinct, honestly. I mean, I think, for design, I think I'm probably more set in what I think because I think I have more experience there. I'm still very new to kind of the digital world and how it's set up. I think that there's always things to me that are going to feel classic. And I think, like I said, the human connection, the personal piece, the networking is one of them. I think having visually pleasing aesthetics for your brand, for your website, for any digital assets you're putting out is always going to be important, and that will change. I mean, you can see it. There's all kinds of like typeface, and then, people are, kind of went from that very like stoic, clean line for presentations and for websites to now they're getting a little bit more kind of animated and more bright colors. And you can see it in branding and packaging when you go like to places like Target. You can see everything has like a very simple typeface and clean. All of those trends they're all fine. I mean, that's all going to come and go, but I think you just need to do what feels authentic to your brand and just maintain the pillars of what you are and who you are. I think it's always going to be trendy to just be authentic, and that goes for home design and, the digital marketing world.
Yeah, so well said, but I'm going to put you on the spot, Justine, because authentic is a word that gets thrown around a lot. What does that look like? And I know that this is something that you help your clients with. What does that process look like? Because I feel like a lot of times they probably don't even realize how much their personal traits, their personal preferences, their personal habits and hobbies can influence what their authentic brand might look like in the world. So what does that process look like?
For the agency, sometimes you have to do a little bit of digging to get clients to identify who they want to be. And I worked with a business coach who was really great in challenging us to kind of come up with, I keep talking about pillars of your brand, 2 to 3 to 4 pillars of like who you serve, where do you serve them, how do you serve them? And so I think if you can identify those things and make sure that that's like your North Star kind of for any project that you're working on or client that you're working with, you go back to those pillars. That I think is what keeps you authentic. And just making sure, for me, for the design stuff that we do, we focus on helping families and people that are in a phase of life looking to build and design for the next phase of life so that everything transitions seamlessly, and we treat ourselves as an extension of them, as an advisor. And so those types of things, if you can constantly go back to that and that is one of your pillars, it allows you to keep that authenticity and to check yourself if you're getting a little bit out of scope or out of, ideal client kind of bubble pipeline type thing. I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, so well said. I love that very simple concept of pillars. These are things that we can always lean on in our messaging, in the way we show up, in the way that we present ourselves in the world. It's a really powerful and simple concept for us to fall back on, but it requires a level of intention. So listeners, if you're thinking, Justine, I don't have these pillars, this is an exercise that we all need to do internally. So super grateful for you sharing that with us. And Justine, I will say time always flies by in these conversations, but I've got to put you on the spot one final time with a super broad question that I always ask, and that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and knowing that you are one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur, what's that one thing that you want to leave them with today?
Oh my gosh. There is no good time. I think if you feel a pull towards something that can make a difference in people's lives or businesses or the world, that you should do it and not make excuses and just just give it a shot. That's honestly my best advice. You might fail, you might succeed, but there's something beautiful to knowing that you are responsible potentially for hiring people and making a difference in their lives, having clients that you make a difference in their life and their business. So I would always say go for it. I'm definitely more reckless in that. I don't really worry about risks too much. So if you feel pulled, I would say just do it.
Yes, I love that, Justine. I also love the fact that you use the word reckless. I often say that we also need an ounce of delusion at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so recklessness,
100%.
Delusion, all of these so-called, like society would look at these and say, no, you don't want to be reckless. You don't want to be delusional, but they certainly help out of the gates. And they give us that courage in a world where, chances are like we could fail, but you're you're a shining example of the fact that even if you do, you're going to pivot. You can always go back and get a job. I think it's such an important thing that needs to be said.
Always.
So Justine, it's been so much fun interacting with you, getting inside the mind of you as a founder, and I'm really excited for listeners to see your stuff in action. So for listeners who want to find your work and your business, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
For the agency, you can go to Étoile PR Agency on Instagram, or you can go to Jaunty J Interiors if you're interested in interior design work.
Yes, and listeners, you already know the drill. We're making it as easy as possible for you to find those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. We're also linking to Justine's personal LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out to her individually, you heard she's not the most active on LinkedIn, but she's getting there. I think we all are this year. I think that that's such a trend that I think a lot of us business owners are coming back to. Justine, we used to view it, I feel like our generation especially, we used to view it just use LinkedIn when you're looking for a job, but more and more people are getting on there as business owners. So listeners, don't be shy in checking out those links. Otherwise, Justine, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. It was great. I appreciate you having me. That was fun.